Well, everybody's heard about the bird. The bird's a winner when a bird is a winner.
Welcome back to another edition of Kicking It with Bird and Mook. You're here with your host, Brian Mook McMurdy and Robert Bird Brown. And once again, we have another special guest in the studio with us today. And I'm going to let Mook introduce him to us.
This is Mook. Today I have Brian Kraling, a gentleman I met last year at a Baltimore Bohemians game who happens to be a sports agent. Brian, can you tell us about yourself?
Oh, absolutely. How you doing, gentlemen? My name is Brian Kraling, and about 3 years ago I founded the Kraling Sports Agency, a soccer-specific sports agency based here in Baltimore. Basically, we started off pretty small. We're still not huge. We've grown quite a lot in 3 years, but we're trying to not exceed our grasp. We have some players in the USL Pro level. We have a few players scattered around Europe. Basically got our start about 3 years ago out of necessity when I had been laid off for more than a year. And I went back to a sort of an old dream I had of getting back into the professional side of the game as a sports agent.
So, Brian, you said you've been around about 3 years. I mean, what was the impetus to get you started besides, you said having the layoff, but what made you start a sports agency, specifically for soccer players?
When I played in the Old Atlantic Professional Soccer Conference, and, I thought I did pretty well and probably could have moved on, but didn't know how. I didn't have an advocate back then. This was the late 80s, and there really weren't any agents working in the game in the United States, and, I just didn't know how to go about it. I didn't have an advocate fighting for me, and I really wanted to fill that niche and be there for guys who were like, the way I was when I was a young player, guys who had the potential, had the ability, and just didn't have the connections or the ins with these clubs.
Now, I noticed last year when I met you, and it was kind of strange, I saw you wearing the Irish soccer jersey, and we just started talking outside the parking lot, and you were with, I guess, a Sporting Kansas City agent?
Correct. Yeah. He's not an agent, a scout.
A scout. Okay.
Yeah.
And who was he scouting at that particular point with the Bohemians?
Well, he was looking at a few players. I know he liked Pete Caringi, and that has come to fruition more or less when he's there in Oklahoma City now in their system. He was looking at Hugh Roberts. Basically, they're in general. I mean, he had some guys that he went in there already liking, but a couple of the guys that are playing professionally now, he had his eye on at that time.
Yeah, and you were also the one that gave the lead into the Dublin Bohemians, which we had signed a contract, hopefully
right.
to two players exchanges and potentially a stateside game maybe in 2015. That's into the works right now. But obviously you got contacts internationally. Can you just mention maybe some countries or some teams that you deal with?
Sure. Well, we do have, as you said, the connections in Ireland, and that's really grown since last year, since we spoke about Bohemians, and since I got the ball rolling with that connection. Bohemians was the first, and the coach at the time was Aaron Callahan, and I got to know him pretty well, and through there we made those connections. Now we work quite a bit with Cork City. I think Justin Reed, who is our vice president of foreign market development, he's working on formalizing a deal with Cork City. St. Patrick's, we have some ins there, so quite a few teams in Ireland are opening up for us. We work with a club in Romania called Botoșani in their top tier. I've got some connections in Germany. We've had a few players playing in the lower divisions in Germany. One connection that's very interesting for us right now is RB Leipzig, who Red Bull is involved with. I think they are majority owners by 51%. They don't own the club outright because of German law. But RB Leipzig is very interesting for us because what Red Bull did was find a team in the lower divisions, buy into them heavily and invested into them heavily, and they've been promoted now, I think, 3 times successively. So, they're on their way, on the fast train to Bundesliga 1, and then they're looking for very young players. So that's a great connection for us, and also potentially for Bohemians, since we have an informal kind of connection with them as well. So we're kind of hoping to make some of those moves and sending some of these lads from Baltimore over to Leipzig.
And I think one of the reasons why we wanted you to come on to the show is because when Bert and I were growing up, and just like you played, you were pretty decent, but you just didn't have that extra contact. Back in the day, well before the internet, the idea of playing over in England would be just like a dream. But there's so many connections now that if there's a parent or even a student who's maybe in 9th, 10th grade but has aspirations to go on a little bit further past college, could you say the gateway of like maybe how they could reach out to you? Maybe give a telephone number, your email address, and then.
Sure. Well, sure. My email address, if you ever want to reach out, I'm very accessible. It's Brian, BRIAN, at krailingsports.com, and that's KRAHLING sports.com. You definitely, we can, even if you're not the sort of player that we're going to be able to work with or help, we're always happy to give advice and recommendations and referrals for players that we can see play. So, anybody can feel free to call me, drop me an email, go on the website and check it out. It's www.krailingsports.com, and we also have a Facebook page where we, do quite a bit of connecting ourselves. But, as far as the route goes, I really highly recommend, playing in the academy system. I don't know if people out there, your listeners, are really familiar with the academy system here in the United States, but, we mentioned Bohemians, which is part of USL PDL, which is the Premier Development League. That's the pinnacle, that's the top tier of the academy system here in the U.S., and those clubs are where the pros are really coming out of. These, you watch a PDL game, and I guarantee you're watching several future professionals on that field. If you look at Bohemians and some of the guys they sent on to professional levels, I've already mentioned, Hugh Roberts. I've mentioned Pete Caringi the third. But there's really quite a few of those guys who are moving up and on to better things. And it's really just it's a professional factory. So, get your kids into the system that leads to that. And all these academy teams should be, their goal should be to get their kids onto PDL. I mean, that should be the big goal of all, all the youth systems should be tying in and sort of funneling in to their local PDL club. I mean, because that is really the direct link to the pros. Every one of those games are scouted by MLS scouts, by USL Pro scouts, even NASL scouts in some cases, and agents like myself. You're going to see those guys in the stands. So that's definitely the way to go. And again, I'm always happy to offer advice. So feel free to contact me directly anytime.
Brian, is there any age restriction, or I'd hate to have somebody reach out and contact you. You always hear about these stories that athletes have lost their eligibility or whatever. What should an athlete be prepared to? What kind of roadblocks are there, I guess?
Well, I think the main thing isn't so much age, but time in between playing at a high level. I personally, and I might get a little controversial here, personally, I don't think that the college game is helping pro development in this country much at all. You get out of college at 22, 23, and you're already 3 or 4 years behind your counterpart in Europe who's been playing for 3 or 4 years professionally. But that said, it's not so much about the age as playing at a high level. So I guess one of the things that we look at is once a guy graduates from college, if he bangs around for more than a year without playing at a very high competitive level on a consistent basis, then that's when you start questioning whether it's going anywhere. But otherwise, the younger you can start getting involved at a high level, the better. And that's just the way it is, unfortunately. But as far as restrictions, I mean, there's always special cases. There are always guys who are a little bit older who can finally, after doing a couple years of the grind, can knock on that door and get a low-level contract signed before going on to bigger and better things.
Brian, we need to take a break. I want to come back and talk to you about the academy system, though, but we need to take a break to pay some bills. So
Sure.
We'll be right back with more Kicking It with Bird and Mook.
Hi, this is Jeff Laird, owner and general manager here at WTTR. Last December, when I bought the station, I knew that I couldn't leave any stone unturned about the operation of the station. I looked at everything: the personnel, the format, our commitment to the community, revenue opportunities, expenses, everything. And there was an expense that was making me extra crazy. We were spending a ton on ink cartridges, toners, and drums, over $400 a month, so I did a full review and called in several vendors to help us with our document processing needs. And there was one vendor that stood out from from all the rest. Document Essentials. Brian McMurty of Document Essentials came in, looked at what we needed, and recommended a solution of network printing, faxing, scanning, and copying for just $179 a month. It's a no money down, turnkey approach. Well, it's only been a couple weeks, but I already can see the savings, and we certainly don't look like one of those big box stores storing all kinds and types of ink cartridges. If your copier, fax, or laser printer doesn't have a service contract, or you're paying way too much like we were to process documents, then call my friend Brian McMurty of Document Essentials. 410-857-5255, extension 107. That's 410-857-5255, extension 107.
We're back with more Kicking It with Bird and Mook. We have our special guest today, Brian Kraling from the Kraling Sports Agency. Brian, before we left for our break, we started to talk about your opinion as far as academy versus some of the other developmental systems to get the young players in the funnel, I guess. Speaking from a perspective of a high school coach who also has a son who's been considered for the academy program, it's kind of a tough balance there. How do you tell somebody not to play for the high school and yet if they want to be the ones that to make it to the next level, really? And I agree with you, the academy system is really the way to go.
Right. And I'm by no means saying you shouldn't play in high school. Every player is different and is going to find a different balance. There are some really great high schools, especially in this area. I know you guys had a coach of one of those great programs from Mount St. Joe's on last time, I believe.
Right.
Those guys, they turn out pros. I know Jalen Robinson, I know Brad Benzing, and these guys are, they're going to be right there in the mix. But they're generally teaching more towards a college style of play, and that's fine for a while. But if you're involved in both, and a lot of players usually are, they're in high school and they're in academy programs, then I think that's a good balance, because you do get that the intensity of the school game, and there's no doubt that that's really thrilling. You have 4 years to do it and to prove yourself, and that's typically more intense and more emotional and a better bonding experience than making it your profession. That intensity has to give way a little bit when you get to that point. But that 4 years where you're going all out, that's it's a lot of fun, and it's good for a player's development as far as becoming emotionally mature and building that character. But if you can do both and play in this academy system while you're going to high school, then highly recommend that.
See, unfortunately, there, Brian, right now is we're all being told that the kids can't do that. It's policy that if you're playing in an academy system locally, you can't play for your local high school.
You know what? I was not aware of that. I know Jalen was in the DC United Academy. I guess that must be a recent change. Huh?
Yeah, it's over the last couple of years, and it's there for a while. There was some of the private school kids were able to do both because obviously they're there partially because of their athletic ability.
Right.
And it was kind of a disadvantage to those of us that coach in the high school, the public high school ranks.
Yeah.
But from what I understand now, the players aren't allowed to do it, at any level.
Wow. Well, that's a shame, and I'm embarrassed that I did not know that. But actually, if it comes down to it, everyone's different. Everyone's going to have to look at their goals and their path, and there's the traditional path still works. It doesn't work as well as some people really think. You don't see a lot of guys, go through the high school ranks and then go to the college ranks, and then get drafted by an MLS club and stick.
Right.
Most of these guys end up playing USL Pro, and that's fine. And that's how it's evolving. That works. You're in the door. You're in the, especially with the affiliations with MLS. So I'm by no means saying that it's an absolute, but for my money, the MLS or excuse me, the academy system, they're teaching the players, the kids, to play like professionals.
Gotcha.
As opposed to play like good college players, and there's a difference.
So, Brian, obviously you have some contracts underneath your belt. Could you explain who you signed and where they're playing right now?
Sure. I think probably start with the USL Pro guys. We've got Cody Andrews, who's playing in Harrisburg City Islanders. We're very proud of Cody because last year he was the only field player in USL Pro to play every minute of every game. Unfortunately, he started this season banged up, so he should be getting back to form pretty soon. We've got Hugh Roberts down in Richmond, Ayo Sosu at Rochester Rhinos, along with his teammate goalkeeper Brandon Miller. We've got Will Haney at Wilmington Hammerheads. I think that's it for USL Pro. But then we've got a couple of guys banging around. We have a young player named Tino Chabaro, who was he's been the Manchester City under 21 team captain for the past year and a half.
Nice.
And we're kind of waiting to see what happens with him. We're hoping City will offer him a senior contract this summer. If not, we might move him on to another club in Europe or even here. He's expressed an interest in playing here. We've got some of the indoor players, Sean Somerville from Rochester Lancers, Julian Myers. We got him hooked up with Rochester Lancers as well. And those are the guys we're hoping to get their foot in the door indoor and then move on to outdoor. And I think those are really the recognizable names. We've got a couple foreign-based players like Hector Vega playing for FC Pacifico.
Now, Brian, where do these guys come from? They're obviously not all Baltimoreans.
No. The way we go about finding players now has really evolved, and it's constantly evolving. We meet like once a week to go over new players who are interested in working with us, and a lot of these guys now are coming to us. A lot of the guys are coming to us via referral from other clients. It started off very much us going out and beating the bushes to find players, and got our foot in the door with one or two guys who got our foot in the door with other guys, and then it kind of led from there. Cody Andrews has been really great about that. He really talks about the agency and sends us referrals. And we have a friend who I worked with for a while, and he ended up leaving the agency, but on very good terms. That's Alex Horwath. He's playing over in Sweden right now. He sends me players constantly, and that's one thing, something to be said about showing some integrity and being able to let a guy out of his contract on good terms. Is they typically come back after a while, and they typically still continue to help you out as you continue to help them out.
And Brian, what's your opinion on video resumes?
Video is crucial. It's very hard to market a player without a video. As far as video resume or highlights are nice. They help. But full match video or long stretches of gameplay are what coaches really want to see. Basically, it's a lot of coaches have this philosophy that, at 45 years old, I could put together a good highlight video. And that's sort of a mixed bag. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of foot in the doors through sending out video resumes, through highlight videos, things like that. It works a lot better if we can send them a link, like with USL Pro. USL Pro is easy when these guys are playing at that level. All their games are recorded and databased, and we have access to all those, and we can send full matches, and that helps. But yeah, try to get some video out there, guys. If you want to play professionally, you need some video of yourself to send out to coaches so they can see what the product looks like. Anybody can say they're good, and anybody can show that belief and confidence. But when guys like me, quite frankly, we put our reputation on the line. When we send a player to a club. And sometimes we do send players that we haven't seen play in person, but we've always seen a lot of video. If we don't see a lot of video, we just can't, I don't care what kind of credentials you are, I can't put my reputation on the line saying, yeah, this guy's really good, when I don't know that's true. So video is very, very important.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a mistake that I think a lot of parents are doing right now. They're hoping that maybe their coach would have connections, but I think sometimes that's a dead-end street. I think if we can educate the people in Radio Land, educate that they can go beyond their coaches and make other connections, whether it's on the college level, the academy level, the PDL level. That's what this show's about.
Absolutely. And it's very much about networking, and you don't want to discard the coaches from the equation. They certainly they have their connections, some more than others, but someone like me, that's my job. My job is to go out there and make these connections, and a coach's job is to coach, and the connections are secondary for him, and they come through years of doing it. Me, I'm out there every day trying to make these connections. I've got a vice president of the company whose sole job is to go out there and make connections overseas. So network everywhere. Don't discard any avenue. Get to know coaches, get to know scouts, get to know agents, and it's really, really about connecting, and then the talent takes over. You have to have a foot in the door before the talent will work.
Now, what's your opinion of the Bohemians? Do you believe that Baltimore can rally around this squad and put it to the next level to Major League Soccer?
Oh, absolutely, and that's why I became involved with them. I just think, this is our chance to prove in this city that we can support a club with enough numbers to get MLS interested. And I think this year we're going to see a big jump in attendance as the club has reached out to, the local EPL supporters groups. I know they've reached out to the Liverpool supporters group in town, the Arsenal guys, the Chelsea guys, and those guys are excited. They have nothing else to do in the summer. They're all diehard, hardcore soccer fans, and now that they understand, and that's the thing. I think it took a while to get the word out as to what PDL was. PDL isn't the bottom of anything; it's the top of the academy system. It's not a fourth or fifth division. It's the top of our academy system, and it's the Pro Factory. And it's a great product. If your listeners have never been to a PDL game, I highly, highly recommend it. It's a beautiful product. These guys are out there playing their hearts out with passion and talent and skill, and it's really beautiful to watch.
Hey, Brian, if I could cut in again, we're going to need to pay another bill, so we'll be right back with more Kicking It with Bird and Mook.
Hi, this is Jeff Laird, owner and general manager here at WTTR. Last December, when I bought the station, I knew that I couldn't leave any stone unturned about the operation of the station. I looked at everything: the personnel, the format, our commitment to the community, revenue opportunities, expenses, everything. And there was an expense that was making me extra crazy. We were spending a ton on ink cartridges, toners, and drums, over $400 a month, so I did a full review and called in several vendors to help us with our document processing needs. And there was one vendor that stood out from all the rest: Document Essentials. Brian McMurty of Document Essentials came in, looked at what we needed, and recommended a solution of network printing, faxing, scanning, and copying for just $179 a month. It's a no money down, turnkey approach. Well, it's only been a couple weeks, but I already can see the savings, and we certainly don't look like one of those big box stores storing all kinds and types of ink cartridges. If your copier, fax, or laser printer doesn't have a service contract, or you're paying way too much like we were to process documents, then call my friend Brian McMurty of Document Essentials. 410-857-5255, extension 107. That's 410-857-5255, extension 107.
All right, welcome back to Kicking It with Bird and Mook. We're here with our guest, Brian Kraling. Again, Brian, one of the things you talked about before we went to break was how you made the contact with different agents, different clubs, different locations. When you represent one of your soccer players, do they say to you, hey, I want to go play for Flamengo in Brazil or Man City in England, or do you do that? How does that really work?
Well, typically players are typically open to go wherever, and we look at a lot of factors. Their preferences are definitely taken into account. Their style of play is taken into account, and then we market them. Basically, we have great relationships with our clients. We like to think that we treat them like human beings, but when it comes to marketing them, they're a product for us, and we market them as such. And typically the way the process will work is each player is assigned one of our agents as part of his team. Now, the teams are mostly really to keep contact with these guys. It doesn't mean like, Justin Reed is not just working with his team or working for his team. Those are the guys that he keeps informed about and keeps in touch with. Now, typically the way it will work is, we'll contact the club, get a dialogue going, and determine what their needs are. If they need an attacking midfielder in his mid-20s, somewhere in that range, and then give us like a price range. So we'll take all the criteria that they're asking for and look at our entire client list and say, okay, this guy fits the criteria, this guy meets the criteria, and we send their resumes over and get the discussion going from there. Once there's interest shown in these guys, then we contact the client and say, hey, this club is interested in you, and we're putting together the trial details now. Are you interested? Almost always a player will say yes, and then from there we'll arrange the trial and to kind of negotiate. The negotiations begin right there. Even before there's a contract on the table, we'll negotiate things like, okay, are you guys going to provide accommodation? You're going to pay him for his travel expenses, pick him up at the airport. So we put all that together, make sure it's all nice and well organized, and send them a summary, send the club a summary, have them sign off on it, make sure that we're all on the same page and that everything they agree to on the phone is in writing, and we arrange a player to go over.
Now, does your agency or any other agency in the United States, do they ever use angel investors or people from the outside seeing the potential, with the working in with the contract and investing for the long term? Because it is somewhat of a risk if you take a look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, and to be quite honest, we're at that point where we've put together a package for potential investors right now. We are looking for investment, but it's like any other business. It's you present the numbers, you present the business model, and in this business, since it's not like sort of a property-based business or a product-based business, you kind of hope to find some guys who are involved in the sports business who sort of understand that the players are the commodities, that a soccer guy would be perfect, but anyone who can really just look and see the potential of having a dozen guys, young guys in USL Pro that are likely maybe half of them to move up to MLS or better. That's the kind of guy we're looking for. But yeah, to answer your question, absolutely. Every agency is different, and every agency is structured differently. But at the end of the day, they're companies, and a lot of these companies look for investment.
It's kind of neat to hear you talk about the players as products, because basically that's really what they are.
Yeah, and that's kind of difficult for me to say, but it's difficult for me to do at times to look at them that way, because you get to know these guys, they become your friends, and in a lot of cases you get very protective of them, like almost like they're your children. So and in our interactions with them, that's very much evident. That personal relationship is always there, but they need to be treated like a product when it comes to advancing their career. They need to be marketed. Their images need to be shaped. Their brand needs to be developed. So from that point of view, we definitely have to look at them as products.
Well, I definitely admire what you've done. Mike Liver with the Elite Tournaments years ago had the idea of getting tournaments together and wasn't quite sure many years ago whether it was going to be hot or not. And he's just sitting on top of a tidal wave. And you've done this in 3 years, ironically at the same time as the Baltimore Bohemians been in town. But where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? And where do you see the soccer industry, especially in the Mid-Atlantic region?
Well, 5 years. I'm hoping that we have at least one more MLS club in the Mid-Atlantic region, right here in Baltimore. I don't have any behind the scenes updates about that, but I certainly hope that's the case. I think there's a lot of room for growth at our top three leagues: MLS, USL, and NASL. There's just so much talent out there, and I really have a good feel for this as an agent, because there are so many guys that they're so hard to place in this country, because there are just so many really good players for every position out there at the pro level. We're not thinning the talent out yet, and until we start to see that, we can keep adding. And it's a big country. We can